Tánaiste, my question relates to the cost of providing army security at Portlaoise Prison. And this relates to the fact that when the army originally was put into Portlaoise, there were a large number of prisoners there. So what I'm interested to find out is what number of prisoners are specifically secured by the army presence, and whether there's the need for the army presence is under review, because as you know, I believe things have changed dramatically there.
I thank the Deputy for his question, and I appreciate the Deputy's ongoing commitment to issues here at Portlaoise and the work that he's done and continues to do. The Deputy will be aware that the Department of Justice and An Garda Síochána have primary responsibility for the internal security of the state. Among the roles assigned to the Defence Forces in the White Paper on Defence is the provision of aid to the civil power, which in practice means to assist An Garda Síochána when requested to do so. At the direction of Government, the Defence Forces continue to provide 24/7 security at Portlaoise Prison. The total cost associated with Defence Forces personnel performing ATCP roles at Portlaoise Prison for the year 2023 was approximately 1.9 million. The total cost includes the cost of escorting prisoners to medical appointments and court hearings outside the prison. Following on from the publication of the report of the Commission on the Defence Forces, which included a recommendation, and I quote, that an immediate focus be given to standing down a number of current Defence Forces ATCP taskings which no longer seem justified in the current security situation. I instructed my department to formally engage with the Department of Justice to seek a new government decision on the withdrawal of the Defence Forces from Portlaoise Prison. In addition to this, I agreed with the advices of my officials and the military authorities that a phased reduction of Defence Forces personnel from Portlaoise Prison should commence in line with the current threat levels from the remaining prisoner cohort falling under the aforementioned government decisions. I can confirm that following consultation with the Department of Justice, a reduced level of deployment is now in place, commensurate with the assessed threat levels. As the Minister of Justice has primary responsibility for assessing the security status of prisons and any review falling from same, I am not in a position to comment further in relation to such matters. Equally, it would not be appropriate for me to comment on the number and classification of prisoners within the prison due to the nature of the security and operational matters.
Okay.
Tánaiste, I met you in December 2020, and at that time there were 29 prisoners in the E block in Portlaoise. At this present moment, there are less than 10, and by midsummer it could be half that again. Do you not agree that that's a radically different situation than the situation which caused the army to be deployed there in the first place? I welcome what you have to say about reviews, but do you not think that it's time that we dealt with this issue and stopped wasting 1.9 million on a very small number of prisoners that could easily be held securely under the normal prison regime?
Tánaiste.
I take the point the Deputy has made. That's why I've acted on this. I mean, traditionally, a deployment of 50 personnel were in situ at any given time, with a resource commitment of 100 personnel in total, accounting for those resting on standby or in standby. The current resource commitment is 16 personnel. Any resources released from the step-down commitment, of course, will be redeployed into regeneration of capacities and capabilities across the Defence Forces. And there is expected now to be substantial savings arising from the reduced deployment of personnel. So we have reduced personnel significantly at Portlaoise Prison, and the matter is under constant review, given the fact, as you have outlined, that the security situation clearly has changed.
When I met you, as I said, there were 29. I predicted at that time that if no new prisoners came in, that the numbers would drop by the end of 2023 to about 10. That happened. To my knowledge, there are no prisoners in the E-wing on remand, so there's nobody waiting trial. There's nobody, to my knowledge, that was in the E-wing out on bail. And therefore, it would appear that the threat level, and some of the prisoners there are very near the end of their sentences and moving into, I think one prisoner is due out next month. So we're talking about a very, very small number of people. And it seems amazing with there are all sorts of other prisoners in the prison who are high risk. It seems amazing that this very small number of prisoners needs the army to secure them when nobody else in the whole prison system who are in for very significant crimes need this. And I think we have to recognise there is a changed dynamic here. And we need to build on that in a positive way to try get everybody to move forward to realise that there is a political way and space for all political opinions as long as they're followed peacefully within this country.
Again, as I said to the Deputy, traditionally you had a deployment or you had a resource commitment of 100 personnel. That resource commitment is now down to 16. And I have instructed that there will be a phased reduction of this even further. So there has been a substantial reduction in line with the assessment, security assessment, and in consultation with the Department of Justice, and also following recommendations from the Defence Forces Commission. And I'm conscious, since I met you, of the issues, and I've certainly spoken to my officials in relation to this issue, and it's one we would intend ultimately that the prison authority should be in a position to deal with it, and that the necessity for the aid to civilian power requirement here would no longer exist, and that would be all our fervent hope in that regard, and that's the direction of travel here.